So, live streaming. In accordance with the council meeting administration policy, this meeting will be recorded and live streamed to the general public. The recording will remain available to the public for 6 months. If you'd like to leave prior to the live streaming, please do so now. If you have any other questions, please contact the governance department. So, safety announcements, evacuation details and information are located on the wall near the entry to the chambers. In an emergency, alarm will sound. Wardens will assist with your evacuation from the building. If directed, please evacuate in a calm and orderly manner via the reception area. Go directly to the evacuation point in the car park beside the town hall. The other audio and visual recordings are on. Yep. I declare the meeting open at 3:05 p.m. And before I start formal proceedings, I'd just like to acknowledge the retirement of Councillor Michael Kelly. At the end of last meeting, retired after 13 years as a councillor and yet 8 years as Deputy Mayor. Councillor Kelly would literally give the shirt off his back to help anyone within the community, and we certainly wish him the best and we thank him for his community services. Also, I'd like to formally welcome back Councillor Deb White, who on a recount came back as a councillor. So congratulations, Councillor. Welcome back to the table. So, any apologies from councillors? We're all here. I do the acknowledgement of the country. I begin today by acknowledging the Palator and Panihir past peoples, the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we gather today, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Would somebody like to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting, please? That's on 10th of September. Councillor Smedley and Councillor Cameron. Any discussion on the minutes, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank you. Sorry. Councillor, Councillor House was away at the time.
And I.
Thank you. I'm sorry, and Councillor White wasn't here, obviously. Thank you. We have declarations of interest from the General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So we actually have a number today, which is that's unusual. We have declarations from Councillor House for agenda item number 16.4. Deputy Mayor Cameron for item 13.1, Councillor Anne-Marie Loader on item 16.5, Mayor Johnson for item 12.2 and Councillor Rodney Sinfield on item 16.2.
Thank you. A few ins and outs today then. Moving on, Council Workshop report is on page 9 of the agenda. That was for the workshop on the 24th of September. 2024. We then move on to Mayor and Councillor reports, which is on page 10 of the agenda. And I'll ask if there are any other councillor acknowledgements or announcements. Councillor Cameron.
Can I make an acknowledgement?
You can.
Let's get it for you. Oops, hang on a moment, technology. So I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge the sad passing of Mrs. Shirley Stevens. Many of you would know Mrs. Stevens as she was the driving force behind their successful honey business, particularly marketing their iconic leatherwood honey. Her ability to offer frank advice, tempered with kindness and consideration, made her a very well-respected member of the Mole Creek community. Her absence will be deeply felt by her family and friends, and I wish to offer my condolences to all those who loved her.
Thank you, Councillor, and I certainly endorse those comments as well. Councillor Loader.
Thank you, Mayor. Something coming up on the weekend, Westbury Town Common Park Run on Saturday at 9 o'clock is partnering with the Westbury Rotary Club to have a special day that's called Lift the Lid on Mental Illness. And of course, Park Run is all about inclusion. It's not just about running, it's about volunteering. And so I encourage the community to get behind that and come down on Saturday at 9 o'clock.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Smedley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just given the football season's finished, just want to acknowledge the work of the football clubs in the community through September. The Deloraine and Prospect junior football clubs both had some success with premierships, and very pleasing to see that Meander Valley Suns won the women's premiership, which was very good after a number of attempts. So well done, all three clubs.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor Sinfield, with the microphone, please, councillor.
I did attend along with councillor White, the CAP management meeting last Friday next door. And also I attended the Blackstone Heights Community News Association meeting last Wednesday.
Thank you. Nothing else, councillors? Right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is petitions.
There are no petitions, Mayor.
Thank you. Community representations. There was no community representations were received at this meeting. Are there any from the gallery? Take that as no. We move then into public question time. The public question time, you're allowed 2 questions per person. I will ask you to actually tell us your name, and I give you 3 minutes to ask the question of council. This is not a debate, so don't expect that we will come back and answer it straight away. We'll probably take the question on notice or answer it where we can. Question time can go for up to half an hour or discretion of the chair. So we will start that. So first off, they've got questions with notice, which are in our agenda, which are there. And then we're moving on to questions without notice. So from the gallery, are there any questions from the gallery? So. One. You hear me? Sorry, I should say 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'll ding the bell to let you know you got 30 seconds to wrap up, just so that you're aware of that. So.
Hello, everyone. These 2 questions are in relation to.
Can I just ask your name? Sorry, you haven't told us your name.
Shane Wesley.
Okay, thanks, Shane.
These 2 questions are in relation to a proposed bauxite quarry application by ADX in Reed Marsh that many Meander Valley residents have recently become concerned about. To give some context to these 2 questions, I will outline in response to a letter I sent to the Tasmanian State Department EPA on the 30th of August 2024. This letter was as a result of ADX reported in the press 5th of August that they were in the process of changing, improving their application. The public submission period had finished, so the implication was changes after the only opportunity the community had to comment, and obviously this was without the proposed new changes. The EPA response was, at this stage the EPA is not aware of any proposal to fundamentally change the proposed activity. If there was a proposal to fundamentally change the activity, this may cause the current application to be non-valid. This would be a matter for the council to determine, and as such it would be best to direct queries in relation to change of fundamental use or validity of the development application to council. So from their response, the EPA was saying that it is the Meander Valley Council's decision when it comes to a change in the activity, in this case a proposal hypothetical to develop a bauxite quarry. When I asked the Meander Council about the EPA response, I was informed that if it is substantial change, the application should be withdrawn and a new application submitted, which starts the process from the very beginning. ADX have now admitted in their drop-in sessions, market displays, and have stressed after the public submission closure date that this project is a small bauxite quarry, but now also a rare earths mine project. This has morphed into a rare earths mining project without proper community consultation and inclusion of all the facts in their application. My questions to the Meander Valley Council are, 1, does council agree that this is a substantial change when its development application for a proposed bauxite quarry is now being openly described by the proponent, ADX, as a rare earths mine project that has potential for expansion?
Thanks, Shane. There's quite a bit of lead in there, and know you're particularly interested in it. Look, it may or may not be. Probably refer to the Director of Development and Regulatory Services, but it'll depend on the advice from the applicant. So we don't know. I haven't seen any advice from the applicant around a change of the application, so it may or may not depending on the level of change that I guess you're indicating that there will be a change. We haven't received that advice at this point, and depending on what that advice is, it may be.
I haven't indicated the change, the ABX has indicated the change. My second question is, will council deem the current application, PA 24.052, as non-valid and request a new application to allow the community time to understand all the facts and information with regards to the changes proposed by ABX when or if they require?
Well, again, Director can certainly chime in with any information that I'm not aware of, Shane, but that application is currently sitting with the state government for their assessment. I think we have sort of said this previously, that we received the application, was provided to the state, and they are still undertaking their assessment. So we don't have any work on the application that you're referring to there. We don't have a live process that we're undertaking. We're awaiting information from the state. Is that correct?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shane. Any other questions from Gary? No, sorry, please step forward and.
I'm a bit nervous, okay?
Please don't be nervous. There's normal people sitting here, so just say it as it is.
All right.
And your name, sorry.
Ralph Wayne.
Thank you.
I could quote your great strategy document for ages, but you must all have been involved in creating it, and I'm sure that you know it well. I think that it's brilliant, and there's hardly a word that I can argue with. Furthermore, it's reinforced by your stunning murals in Deloraine. It enshrines and mirrors almost exactly the objections we and the Deloraine and Reading Marsh communities have to the proposed ABX bauxite mine operation and rare earth exploration in Reading Marsh. The proposed ABX mine threatens our way of life, our property values, our health, our roads, our tourism, our wildlife, and the community values that you encourage and support in your strategy document. So where do we go from here? I don't really understand how decision-making by MVC occurs. My bad. When I've objected formally to the ABX mine or asked formal questions in these council meetings, I hear that they've been sent to third parties, like the EPA or Taswater, for assessment. So it's obvious that you rely on other bodies like the EPA to provide expert opinions. These organisations have their own priorities and workload pressures, as evidenced by EPA's September board minutes, where they make clear that they'll need to add an extra board meeting so that they can clear the six existing assessments with a November deadline in time. So they're under pressure. So my first question is, does the MVC, you guys, actually have the power to implement its strategic plan? Or is it in the hands of these other bodies, like EPA and Taswater, to agree or implement bits of it, while MVC just crosses its fingers and hope that its strategy is fulfilled? The decision-making weight given to these external organisations explains why, given council strategy, the ABX proposal has not already been rejected, as it so completely counters your strategy, philosophy, and priorities, and the communities of Deloraine and Reading Marsh. So I repeat, does MVC actually have the power to implement its strategy? My second question to you is really just a heads up for your benefit.
If you don't mind, we'll just no. We'll answer the one question before you go to the second question.
Yeah,
otherwise we'll get lost.
Okay. Yep, thanks, Ralph. The community strategic plan work, it's been a real focus for us in 2024. It's been great. We've had a lot of community input into the drafting of that document. So thanks. It's nice that that was recognised. Within the plan, I guess we talk to things that are within council's control, because we identify the roles of council as a provider, council as a facilitator, and council as an advocate within the community. So the plan that we have produced and put out for community comment includes all of those things. So whilst in the project that you're referring to, the ABX mine application, and I understand that some people share your opinion, and we have heard that, there are things that are within council's control, such as what the road conditions around that area could look like. And there are things that where we would be advocates and we have no say potentially around mining leases that are issued. So there's quite a bit to that, but some things we can control and some we can't.
Okay,
Can I
so
just-
that's what's
Can
going
I
to.
just add
Yeah,
to that,
go for
is
it.
you don't understand the process that council goes through. I guess with any development that comes before us, there are, say, sister bodies or other regulatory bodies that we have to go to get their opinion on it. You mentioned Water, you mentioned EPA as well. So there, we don't have the staff in the building to do those roles. So we do rely on other bodies, and you did say that they are stressed and they are, overworked as they are. But that's where all councils go in Tassie for those things. So your second question?
Okay. Just as long as you understand that as ordinary people, look to you guys as the decision makers, all right? And it's only because I've had to deal with you guys for a while that I know all these other bodies are concerned, which makes sense, I'm not arguing, but they look to you as a decision maker, okay? So my second really question is, say, just a heads up for your benefit. Do you realise how deeply local residents in Reedy Marsh and Deloraine would feel betrayed if, just as the strategic plan has been published and the mural has been finished, the bauxite mine is then approved and trashes our communities?
Thank you. Ralph, we've had a lot of representations on the bauxite mine, probably more than any other, not more than any other, but up with other developments that have occurred within the municipality. So we're acutely aware of the representation that's out there. And as the general manager has said, we are waiting for the EPA to come through on their assessment of it before it comes before us. So thank you for your representation.
Yeah,
which I
thank you for
board.
this.
Thank you.
I'm Linda Weisbaum, also from Reedy Marsh. So firstly, I'd like to congratulate the NBC on the draft community strategic plan. It's really lovely, and I'd like to quote the Mayor's message. It says the community strategic plan reflects the hopes, values and goals of the Meander Valley community. Under the vision, it says that it is to nurture our landscape and honour our heritage. We come together as a community to preserve our lush environment, to protect our fertile earth. As for the community values, it says we protect and preserve our natural environment, the fertile ground beneath our feet. We prioritise sustainability so Meander Valley continues to flourish for generations to come. This is really a shared vision, and our community stands right behind Council's strategic plan. We really applaud it. It's what our values are too. But our values and our environment are under threat. ABX has put in an application for a bauxite mine in Reedy Marsh. The area they want to mine is some of the best land in the area. According to this map, it's a little golden nugget of class 3 agricultural land, which is suitable for crops or intensive grazing. ABX wants to dig up this prime agricultural land and ship it to South Australia to put into cement. This will make it very difficult for future generations to flourish on the land because the land will be gone. And that's really of great concern to the community. It goes against our shared values. ABX has applied to council for a bauxite mine, but it seems to be a little bit of a ruse. Their website hardly mentioned the bauxite mine. It says they've discovered rare earth elements on the land, and they've signed an agreement with Nucor, which is a Canadian company for the rare earth elements. They've even got a YouTube channel, which gives on a lot of insight. Their CEO, Dr. Mark Cooksey, says that they have 2 project focus areas. First is rare earth elements. Second is their Alcor project in Bell Bay. Oh, and then they also have some bauxite mining. That's just not even one of their core focuses. So I think that ABX has not been quite honest or open with council. They plan to open rare earth mine in our valley. And a very important point is, again, Dr. Cooksey quotes him saying, a guiding principle of ABX is we only operate when welcomed. He says it's an important philosophy for ABX. Now, the community here have very clearly shown that ABX is not welcome in the Meander Valley. We know that our councillors in the Meander Valley have integrity. You're honourable men and women, and we know that you have high standards. You've clearly shown this in the community strategic plan, and the community supports your vision. It's our shared vision. So to protect our precious valley and the soil we stand on, mining our class 3 land is not sustainable, brings nothing to our community. So my question today is council willing to stand by the community strategic plan? Are you willing to take ABX by their word and say that they're not welcoming the Meander Valley? We trust you to do what is best for our valley and to save it for future generations.
Thank you. I can't speak for my fellow councillors, but we obviously can't come forward with a view until there's a development put forward in front of us, because if we as individuals put forward that we do or don't support, and that we are automatically potentially out the door to vote on. So be aware that while you might publicly want us to come out and stand and say things, at times we can't do that.
That's fair enough. As long as you know our feelings.
Thank you.
And we support your plan.
Thank you.
The other question is that we spoke to the ABX representatives, and so they want to mine rare earth elements, and they're going to have settling ponds, but it's right beside the Brushy Rivulet conservation area. What will happen if there's a rain event, or a flood event? And they said they don't know, it's not their problem, it's council's problem. And so I know that is not before you, but if you can please be aware that, because we asked surely that they must be responsible land managers there, and they just say it's not their problem. So that will be contamination of our Brushy Rivulet conservation area and our water. So I don't know if that's.
Thank you.
Just
file it away as a question. Thank you. Right. Any other questions?
Is this with or without notice?
This is without notice, I think. Yep.
Good afternoon, Steve Gregory, President of Westbury Meander. Yesterday I had a meeting with Meander Valley Plumbing Council, Plumbing and Planning. I was advised that we cannot build on the Westbury Showground site unless we amalgamate the 3 land titles that council transferred to the Agricultural Society. So I'd just like to know whether council has an appetite to fund and help process that realignment, or whether it's up to the Westbury Meander to fund it from grant money. It was only from a meeting yesterday that we actually found out what's going on. So I was advised to contact a land surveyor, so I wrote a letter last night to one trying to find the costs for it, but I just don't know where we're going to go. The showgrounds won't pay for the realignment, so I'm just trying to work out where I go from here.
Steve, we'll take that question on notice. The general manager is going to respond.
Yeah, so Steve, we've, I guess we'll go back a bit of a step. So the Westbury Meander currently operate out of Council King Street Depot. We've been working with them for, well, at least a year, I'd suggest, about finding an alternative site, because we're on a time frame around what our King Street site looks like. So Steve and I have met a couple of times at least, probably, to talk about what that could look like, and it was really pleasing that they were successful in receiving some grant funding, I think, from the state government towards their project. So understand the budget limitations of the Men's Sheds project. We have been talking with them recently around the title. I think the Men's Shed asked some inquiries at one point anyway around what could be done at the site, and that helped determining the Men's Shed's preferred location for the shed. But that sort of didn't identify the issue around the titles. It's sort of come to light more recently when they've been progressing towards an application. So I know that council officers have spoken with Steve recently around that and what options there are around continuing to proceed with that location, but what would be required to achieve that. So as far as facilitation and process goes, I think we have been doing that and will definitely continue to do that. As far as providing funding towards the project, Steve, I think we'd probably be open-minded depending on what the cost was. But we sort of have been with you on the journey so far, and we wouldn't want to see the project stopped. So within reason, it's something that council will consider in the future.
Thank you.
That's what I was going to say, Jim. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Any other questions?
Hanby, 73 William Street, Westbury. I'll take council to planning application /23/0048 75 William Street. This development has taken away 100% of my security, 100% of my privacy. It cost me $5,000 in legal and survey fees as they outright refused to put in a boundary peg. They then tried to adversely possess the boundary in its entirety, 5.6 metres of my land to lay 1.8 metric tonnes of concrete to shore up their developed block. I put a stop to that. They've damaged my property. They've threatened me with the Supreme Court from the very start. They've even asked at my front door if I've ever considered moving and selling myself. They've overinflated the quote for the fence. The first one was $14,000, $7,000 to pay for the fence, and $7,000 when they took me to court and won, they'd get the fence paid for free. The second quote was $7,000, which I refused to pay because, like I said, they're developing. I had 2 fences already. I hadn't paid a cent. Now, they are banking the dirt up against the fence, well, down to the fence, and against the brand new fence that has no retaining wall and no drainage. I will be up for replacement of 56 metres of fence every 4 to 5 years as it will rot out. I won't be doing that, nor will I be absorbing any excess storm water. This whole development has been a nightmare for me and is ongoing as we speak. As of today, I am informing the Building Ombudsman of what's going on. Can council please show me anywhere in Tasmanian law that states I have to absorb excess stormwater from the development, number 75 William Street, in percentage or other? My second question, councillors, is if a councillor is unable to vote in a planning application due to a conflict of interest, can council explain how a councillor who has access to everything planning, i.e. special clauses, can be a developer of property and that not be classed as a conflict of interest? Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
I'd like to take it on notice. The first question was very detailed, I suppose, so we probably have to take it on notice to provide a response around the stormwater aspect. I think Rebecca highlighted. And the second one, yeah, we might have to read back about the way that was asked. I'm not sure if that's a Meander Valley councillor that was being referred to, but I guess generically we can provide a response. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. I'll take that on notice, Rebecca. Thank you. Any other questions from the gallery? Take that as no. Done. Very good. Thank you. All right. Thanks for the questions. If you haven't done so already, for those who ask questions today, could you email a written copy of the questions to ogm@nbc.tas.gov.au by tomorrow morning, or if you've got handwritten questions, you please hand them in to Anthea as you leave today. Thank you, so that we can actually follow up as best we can. Thanks for that. Moving on to councillor question time. So there was no questions on notice that have been received from councillors. Yep. Okay, we'll let people go. Good.
Just before they go, I was going to ask a question. Could we restate how, in terms of the bauxite mine, it will be assessed? Like, we have quite a few people here today.
We'll have to do that at a later date because half of them have gone on the on-site. So we'll have to.
Well, they might come back.
No, not at the moment because we're actually moving on to the next part of the meeting.
No, but that's what I mean. We're going to ask questions without notice. So my question without notice is exactly that. Could we inform them in terms of our process? I mean, we have informed before, but
when we get them settled, councillor, we'll head into that and you can ask that question.
Thank you.
Right. Are there any questions without notice from councillors? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sinfield. Come on, Councillor Sinfield.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, can we have a restatement from staff in terms of, in generality, as to how a bauxite or a mine of this nature would be assessed in terms of, EPA involvement being a level 2 activity, etc. I think it'd be worthwhile.
Thank you, General Manager, and then planner stepping up.
Yep, so I think it was, we're October, so I'm going to say perhaps the August council meeting, we provided a more detailed response about that, specific to the ABX application, what processes people could expect around that, but perhaps we'll ask the acting team leader, town planning, Brenton, to provide a comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the application is still with the Environmental Protection Authority for their assessment. I have reached out to them and asked, is there any indication as to when their assessment might be complete? They do not, they're still waiting on, I understand, some information, I think. So we are, yes, waiting for the EPA to complete their assessment at this stage. Once we get their decision, we have a 42-day assessment timeframe to complete the assessment. So once we get GA's decision back, we will do our assessment, particularly our key focus is use and traffic. The other matters are covered off by the EPA, and the decision will be made at a council meeting. So the planner's report will be in the council agenda for the public to see, and that will go to you, councillors, for your decision.
Councillor Loader, question or comment?
Thank you, Mayor. A follow-up question. So there is a possibility that the EPA, it might not ever get to council, that the EPA may assess it and throw it out, and then it will never come to us.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the EPA could knock it back. Yes.
Councillor Sinfield again.
Well, it was just the comment that, based on some of the questions we had earlier from the gallery, it's not, our strategic plan is one thing and we're mindful of that in all the decisions we make, but this was mandated to go to the EPA because of the size and nature of the operation. So they must fulfil their regulatory role, and then our role is built around that. So it wasn't a case of council having the opportunity to just, if you like, say no up front without all that other process being part of the overall process.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dudman.
Just quickly, Mayor, for the benefit of those in the gallery and this side, my question is, could the Arctic conditions we're currently facing be dealt with and the air conditioning be turned down slightly?
Oh, that's really
I tried to get to earlier, but unfortunately I had to suffer a bit longer.
It's really.
It's quite good at this end.
I know, straight up there.
Okay, Scott. Thank you, Councillor Dudman. Another question, Councillor Loader.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've got two questions on behalf of Helen Hutchinson, who couldn't be here today. And first are, Prospect Vale and Blackstone Heights have a third of the population of Meander Valley, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Do they also have a third of the facilities provided by the MBC, sports grounds, sports facilities, public halls, playgrounds, parks and reserves? And I've sent this to Anthea.
Thank you.
Response? Yep. I think that potentially understated the population, but that's okay. We'll move on. Do they have a proportionate amount of the parks and recreation? Well, we would need to take that aspect on notice. I'd say they potentially do not, given the land area that we're talking about. But all of those things are decisions of councillor. So every year, council makes decisions to spend their sort of resources in a sustainable manner, or in all areas of the municipality. And those decisions have been made since 1993 when Meander Valley Council was created. So I guess the amount of parks and reserves is reflective of the decisions of council over the past 30 years.
Second question.
Thank you. And a second question from Helen. The same ABS stats show that there are 637 unoccupied buildings in the Meander Valley Council area. Would the council please consider imposing higher rates for houses or buildings that are unoccupied for more than a year?
Yeah.
Yep, the council can. That's right. So every year, council forms their budget estimates and rates resolution, and during the workshopping and the decision around that, which for this year occurred in June, council had all of those options open to them. So we also have a rates and charges policy which council reviewed this year, actually. So council doesn't differentiate based on vacancy. So our policy position is that we do not differentiate based on vacancy or occupancy. However, council annually has the ability to make that decision should they choose to.
Thanks, General Manager. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Tibble?
Thank you, Mayor. I've had a couple of inquiries about signs appearing on properties or in paddocks that have nothing to do with products or businesses that have nothing to do with the land on which the sign is placed. I'm just wondering what council policy is on that, so for the benefit of the people that have asked.
I'm going to look at Krista to answer that one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Council doesn't have a policy on signs as a general whole. We have one on real estate signs. We look to the planning scheme to decide where signs can and can't be, and it needs to be in line with that. So if there are signs that have been put up illegally, then we'd have to go through a compliance process with them. Or if they're legal, they will have gone through the planning process.
Okay, councillor. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Take that as no. Thank you. Council notices of motion. No notice of motion have been received for this meeting. Thank you. So we're moving into planning authority. So under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, council acts as a planning authority in regard to the items included in agenda item 12, planning authority. So we have some speakers for this. So just bear with me. Yep. So we have Mr. Richard Winspears as a speaker, please.
Richard's not here.
Oh, okay, sorry. You're a representative, that's fine.
I'm his father, Basil.
Okay, please take the. And there's a microphone, Basil, that will be given to you. So, yep. So you've got some time to address council. So,
I'm a director of both Buried and Tas and the Lodge Property Trust, and we've put in an application to increase to change the use of the old Tally Lodge to border accommodation for our berry pickers. I think everything's been mentioned before. We've had them there for 2 years under, I don't know what we've been using it for, but they've been there for 2 years. We've had very, very good response from our neighbours there and the community as a whole. I don't believe there's been any trouble or conflict. And we would just like to say that we're looking to make a really nice village there for our workers and accommodation, and hope this motion is passed.
thank you, Basil. Is there anyone else that wants to speak before we go into the motion? No. That's the class analysis. Okay, so before we go to the motion, there has been a change to the agenda. General Manager, would you like to the approved agenda, I should say?
That's correct, Mayor. So we're about to call for a mover and a seconder to the planning item. However, we've introduced one very minor change, which is in the permit notes, and that's permit note 1. Published agenda on council's website said if food and beverages are to be sold to visitors, including with an inclusive charge for food and accommodation, the change is to introduce the words residents and, so that it would then read, if food and beverages are to be sold to residents and visitors. So reflecting that we're talking about residential use there.
I'd recommend you put and or.
And or.
And or.
Well, we can introduce that change right now, and we're about to call for a mover and a seconder, Councillor Sinfield. So I guess the mover may introduce something differently, but happy to reflect that in the recommendation.
It's a very minor change, doesn't change the actual aspect of the planning application before us. So on that basis, I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder, please. So Councillor Dudman as a mover, Councillor Cameron as a seconder.
It's identical.
And happy with the changes, Councillor Dudman, that were foreshadowed there.
Yeah, I'm happy with the changes or the and or.
Thank
As
you.
we've got up there sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Look, I think, thank you first to the staff and George for your work, and as well as to the representatives, in this matter. I think that it is a fairly straightforward application and I'm inclined to support it. And I appreciate particularly the representation from Mr. Scott, who has asked some detailed questions, and I believe that the response was sufficiently worded, and I'm content that the questions that he has raised has been answered. So as I said, I'm more than happy to support this one, and obviously wish the applicants the best of luck with the expansion of their business, which I know is valued in the community.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cameron as a second on the motion.
Thank you. I don't have anything really to add further than what Councillor Dudman's added, but I think the representative raised some really important things that needed to be answered, and I appreciate the work that's gone into answering those questions, and thank you for coming along to represent today, and all the best.
Thank you. Open up for discussion, questions. Councillor Loader.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very pleased to support this motion. Accommodation for agricultural workers is in very short supply across all sectors in agriculture, so I think this is a really good solution. I have the privilege of working with a number of pickers, helping them with their English in my paid work, and they're a lovely bunch of people, and I know that they're really pleased to be here, and having some great accommodation for them is really, really important. I am concerned that they are crossing the bridge at Hadspen, but I note that they get a really good orientation about road safety, so that's really good. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Open up for discussion, questions, councillors. Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm just echoing the words of everyone else really. First of all, the representations or the questions that were asked in the representations were very valid. They were sensible questions and they needed to be answered. And again, as per Councillor Dudman, I think they have been clarified, they have been answered. I'd also like to acknowledge the importance of the seasonal workers that come into, as Councillor Loader has said, the importance of those people coming in, integrating into our broader society, which they are encouraged to do and which they are doing, which is great to see. They do provide a vital function for our agricultural sector in both fruit and vegetable production, and I think we're lucky to have them.
Thanks, Councillor House. Councillor White.
Yes.
With the microphone, please.
Just want to say that I appreciate the applicant's desire to provide a quality experience and quality accommodation for their workers. It's great to have those values front and centre and a good example to others. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, councillors? No? No? Okay, I'll put back to the second on the motion. Councillor Cameron, anything to add? Nothing? Councillor Dudman, nothing to add? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. You. Oh, that's for.
Osman, paid.
So Mayor Johnson's declared interest for next planning item 12.2, and Deputy Mayor Cameron has assumed chair.
Page 98, which I need to just. Sorry, I'm not very good at technology. Let me just get the page, some on the page. So, Planning Authority item PA 24-0259, 176 Main Road, Meander. I'm aware that there's some people in the gallery that would like to speak today. So if you'd like to come up and see Linda, and it'll be 3 minutes, and I'll ding the bell at 2 minutes 30 seconds. And if you could just say your name before. So I think there might have been 3 of you. Lisa, David. Oh, you want to go George first? You go first. Righto, George. Okay, the applicant. So George is speaking on behalf. George Walker is speaking on behalf of the applicant. So I'll be very quick to press the button on you, George. So you ready?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor and councillors, George Walker, 60 Degrees. We've been engaged by David Thompson, who is the owner of 176 Main Road, Meander, the proponents planning application before you. Someone purchased his Meander Valley property in 2019. He and his wife moved to Meander to live permanently in 2020, following a life-changing health diagnosis which required Tomo's earlier than expected retirement from his carpentry trade of over 40 years. Tomo slowly improved his property with a dwelling, outbuildings, roads, fencing, drainage and landscaping. His health diagnosis means that he's unable to work or undertake extensive and laborious tasks around his property. Tomo has a passion for vintage trucks and vehicles where he collects and actively restores them in his shed. His wife currently works in Devonport, travelling there each day. The driver for the visitor accommodation use is twofold: to share the benefits of his property, its location and aspects to visitors, and to generate some additional income. The additional income will be important when Tomo eventually becomes less mobile and bedbound, which will require his wife to become a stay-at-home carer. Until this time, Tomo will continue to improve his property bit by bit, restore vintage vehicles, and manage the proposed visitor accommodation use, which is recommended for approval. The planning report is comprehensive, provides clear and concise reasoning as to how the proposed visitor accommodation use will be compatible with the established mixed-use nature of the Meander village and will not cause an unreasonable loss of residential property. Tomo and his wife live on the property and will be ensuring the use is managed so as not to cause impacts upon adjoining and nearby neighbours, including upon their own amenity. Tomo is supportive of the conditions requiring screening to improve privacy, visitor accommodation use and dwelling properties. One concern is the cost of established semi-mature trees to a height of 1.5, which is a requirement of the permit. In this regard, the estimated cost for the trees will be equivalent to around 4 years of revenue use, and it's what an alternative to this condition would be requiring quick growing juvenile plants that allow the plants to grow to the requisite height of 2.4 metres. It's Tomo's intention for these plants to be planted in Pittosporum, which there is already existing rows of vegetation on the site as well. These will be hedged and form part of his broader vision for the site. And thank you. That's all I've got.
Oh, well done, George.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So next on my list here, David Thompson. You wanting to speak today?
That'd be me.
So I'll just ring the bell at 2 minutes and 30.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm David Thompson, as I know me. I can speak only for what my wife and I've done in the last 4.5 years. Worked pretty hard, to be fair. We turned up to a property that had 44 bales of hay on it 4.5 years ago, which we've now established our house and my shed in which I restore my vehicles and so forth in. And yes, the big plan was to certainly enjoy our environment, and we do. I love where we live, and we've had many visitors and family come down and stay with us. So much so that they encouraged us to apply for the hip camp. You know, with hip camp, at the end of the day, you turn up with your own self-contained vehicle, your own power supply, your own grey water, black water, fresh water, etc. Whatever waste you may produce on site, I would request for those people to take with them. I will not be providing anything other than
green patch of grass and a lovely view which we all enjoy. And I have taken initiative in the last 18 months to plant out my boundary. We've hedged the whole lot, which is something, I don't know, as a boy I've always admired. So I'm trying to achieve that now. And yes, in order to put 1.5 mature plants in is quite the expense at $190 odd a plant. And 200 odd linear metres required as of this application put forward has been brought to my attention. So, you know, looking at other options as far as screening is concerned, may or may not be acceptable to council to appease those that have retrospectively somewhat put their application forward. We're open to discuss that further, but there's many options. A man can put a screening of timber construction to appease the council. We can also put in additional storage containers, which would appease me, no doubt, for storage of spare parts, because once you purchase these items, they are very hard to source spare parts for. And passion is something that is dying, unfortunately, because once these old wheels make their way to the scrap, they don't come back. So I look after my yard and property to the best of my ability. I can tell you right here and now that no visitor will be on that site without me being present. I'm pretty much homebound these days. Yes, I pop to the shop, but don't venture too far at all because I'm preparing for the end of the day. So that's what my applications are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So next on my list, Lisa Morrison. Thanks, Lisa. I'll just give it about 2 minutes, 30.
Good evening, and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to our representation today. My partner Kelvin and I are very proud members of the Meander community, also very new members of the community. We're also thrilled to be living at the vibrant little and growing village of Meander. We live there for very similar reasons to the applicant. It's a great, diverse village, fulfilling all the obligations of the village under the planning scheme. And that's one of the things that certainly attracts us, and we look forward to watching that village grow and flourish. We're very supportive of economic vibrancy, tourism initiatives, and diversity across the village from a commercial perspective. As clear from our representation, however, we do not agree with the loss of amenity as being reasonable for what is proposed in the development of 178. And we ask that you reject the application based on that and other considerations for today. We live next to a site that is commercial scale industrial site where the applicant does get to enjoy his retirement. We too have moved here for medical retirement, and we come home 24 hours a day. So when we talk about loss of amenity, it's not a 9 to 5 exclusion of that opportunity to enjoy our site. Council staff have very generously worked their way through that application and the representations, and we're grateful for the work that they've put into base their report today. They've recommended a number of plans be developed and adhered to by the applicant to mitigate unreasonable loss of amenity that this caravan park in particular, as part of his application, will lead to. However, the applicant has already demonstrated that they're ambivalent at best about adhering to conditions and council requirements, as demonstrated by the illegal construction and works on buildings and on waterways already on site. What that creates for us as neighbours is further loss of amenity by requiring us as ratepayers and neighbours to lodge complaints and go through a complaints process.
The vegetation that is proposed is 180 centimetres tall at height. I'm 178, my partner is 6'2". We will be visible. It's not about what we look onto. We will be visible on our balcony, on our kitchen, taking a cup of tea in our dam, in our studio. If we chose to practice nude yoga on nude gardening day, we will be visible. And I'll pay attention to Annex A where 2.5 metres is listed as.
You're right, if you nearly finished.
If I'm finished.
I'm terrible at keeping time. I've actually given you 15 extra seconds, so keep going.
So I asked councillors to consider if everybody sitting around the edge of this meeting room today was to come to your house, set up tents, or set up chairs 50 metres from your kitchen, from your back porch, and stay there for 14 days. I ask you to tell me that you don't believe that would be an unreasonable loss of amenity for visibility, for noise, for light pollution, for smoke, sound and smell. If a caravan park was 50 metres from your back doorstep and you were home 24 hours a day. Thank you for your time. That's our representation today.
Thank you, Lisa. Pauline, yep. Pauline Ponder, have you on my list as well, Pauline? Thank you. I'll try and keep to my time a bit better. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Number one, first of all, thank you so much to the council about the air conditioning turned down. I was getting so cold, I thought I was living in Tasmania. I'm here basically today. I am a neighbour, along with my husband, of David and Brooke Thompson, Tomo, as we affectionately call him. Have been for a number of years now. I've seen the property go from our outlook used to be a paddock full of stags, pretty normal, to what I consider to be extremely well maintained and looked after property. We don't have any objection whatsoever to the development that's proposed on the site. It appears to be quite minimal to us. We're on the southwest boundary of the property, and we're up higher, so we actually will see a lot of things. I don't have any problems with it. And basically, I'm hoping to kind of allay some apprehensions that other people may have. We know that through knowing our neighbours, that they're extremely diligent about what they're doing, very dedicated, pay a huge amount of attention to detail. If something is to be done right, it's done right by Tom. So we have absolutely no apprehension whatsoever about this development. In fact, kind of welcome it. And hopefully, if it's approved, we'll be able to say congratulations. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item? Okay, so I'll go back to the councillors now. Is there someone that would like to move this? Councillor Dudman, and a seconder? Councillor Loader? Thank you. As the mover of the motion, Councillor Dudman, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you to the representatives and to the applicant for what they have presented today. I will be honest, this has taken quite a bit of my time thinking about my position on this and whether I'd be likely to support it or reject it. And I obviously spoke at length with Ms. Morissette yesterday, particularly about the amenity, which I believe is her major concern, and it was my major concern too. And in terms of amenity, and whether it could be deemed an unreasonable loss of residential amenity, I do accept that amenity is likely to be impacted through this development application. The issue that I have, and as I said, I discussed it with Ms. Morissette yesterday, is whether it can be deemed unreasonable, especially in light of the fact that amenity as a term under the planning scheme is vague, and the case law in Tasmania that we have to go by is not as strong as I would like it to be able to make a clear and a decision on that. And on that basis, given the character of the area, the heavy vehicle movements that are based around the area, obviously it borders a farm, I cannot confidently say that this application would cause an unreasonable loss of residential amenity. I think whilst there may be an argument for it, I don't think in this instance that it would be sufficient, should this go to the tribunal, to be deemed an unreasonable loss of residential amenity. On that basis, while I am incredibly sympathetic to the concerns that have been raised, I will be supporting this application because I do believe that it sufficiently meets the planning scheme. And I'll make the point to those in the room, to the councillors as well, that of course we have our discretions, but those discretions aren't an on-off switch. We can't just choose whether we like something or not based on a discretion. If we have a discretion, we must be certain that within balance, that the application is compliant, and in my view it is. So on that basis, it does have my support.
Thanks, Councillor Dudman. Councillor Loader, would you like to speak on the motion?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you to the representatives for coming along and to us. I too have spent a lot of time studying this and went for a drive out to have a look. I disagree with Councillor Dudman on the loss of amenity. Recently, we had a big power outage here in Westbury for over 24 hours, and the noise of generators from several houses away was intense where I lived. And so there is the scenario that there could be 6 generators all going all night for a considerable number of nights. I think that is a lot of noise, and for that reason, I can't support this motion.
Councillor Loader. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this motion? Councillor Sinfield? I'll go Deb next.
I hadn't realised until just now, in terms of the representations from the gallery talking about the cost of the plants, and so I was mulling over the possibility of how one might defer commencement of the use of the site for the caravans, RV vehicles, etc., until or if smaller plants were put in but they reach the required height, how you might defer that. But in looking at that, looking at essentially on page bottom of the permit conditions 1 through 3, I actually see nothing that says whether or not you put juvenile plants or mature ones in. I don't actually see anything that appears to me to legally require them to have done so before the commencement of the use of the site. It simply, in point 2, for example, it says the visitor accommodation site must not commence until condition 1 has been fully complied with. But condition 1 is simply lodgement of plans with council. As I read it, it doesn't go the step further, and so whether dot point 2 can be altered in some way to say that any use is contingent upon either achieving that height or from day 1 the height is achieved.
So the general manager's just indicated he had a comment he'd like to make on that, and then I'll just go to the planners.
Yes, perhaps to ask the town planner to provide a comment on that, but as Councillor Sinfield has indicated, so if we have a look at proposed permit condition 2, it states the visitor accommodation site must not commence until condition 1 has been fully complied with. The required minimum height of the hedging plants is 1.5 metres of planting, with the expectation that within 1 year, the minimum height of the hedging plants is 1.8 metres. If the hedging plant height cannot be achieved, then screening structures must be used, the minimum height being 1.8 metres. With condition 1 referring to prior to the commencement of the accommodation. Off-grid short stay sites, self-contained caravan and motorhomes, the following must be submitted to the satisfaction of the town planner. So perhaps Leanne, a comment from you.
Leanne, just a question from me too while you're going. I thought you may be able to address around Councillor Loder's comments you made earlier as well. I think it might link in when it talks about the site management plan. So Councillor, I'll come back to you as well, Councillor Loder.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. The expectation of the conditions is that the visitor accommodation would not commence until the plants had reached at least a height of 1.5. And with the species that they had indicated that there was going to be an expectation that within 1 year they'd reach a height of at least 1.8 metres high. I can perhaps see, yes, there is some confusion in that because I did state at planting when perhaps to clarify it should have read at the commencement of the use of the site. So I do take that on board. You have asked in regards to the site management plan that had, we have got a condition there for. The site management plan we're asking to be completed and submitted to council, which will be then endorsed. It is to the satisfaction of council. We're anticipating that site management plan will contain such items such as that the motorhomes and the caravans will be self-contained, that the rubbish will be all managed by the clients. They must take it away from the site, must not be left there. There might be some indication about dog management on site as well, arrival times, vehicle speeds, and so on, and including in that noise and how noise is going to be managed from the site. Noise covers a range of items that could occur on the site, including generators, which had been mentioned in the report as well, to perhaps music, to perhaps loud gatherings. So we had anticipated that that too would be in that management plan as well.
Councillor White, I think you had your hand up next.
Yes, thank you. As with other councillors' comments, I've been very concerned with what does in fact constitute unreasonable loss of amenity. So we have in our planner's assessment that loss of amenity is considered by the tribunal to be something that's unreasonable if it's immoderate or exorbitant. And it also says that it has to be considered in the context of the overall pre-existing amenity. So the applicant's comment and his presentation to council is that they enjoy their environment and enjoy where they live. They have a lovely view and everyone enjoys that view. So I think probably the same could be said for the representation that we've received. So the existing amenity is obviously an important aspect of both parties' decision to move to Meander and to live in that environment. So does it exceed just or reasonable limits? I appreciate the site management plan that's been developed by the planners, but I doubt whether that management plan can actually eliminate the nuisance or the impact on amenity caused by traffic. People talking, music, they might also have radios and televisions in their rigs. We've talked about generators and whether they're intermittent or continuous. Even if they're only intermittent, it's still a considerable impact given the circumstances that exist at the moment. So I've come down on the side that it does constitute unreasonable impact on unreasonable loss of amenity, and I can't support the application.
Thanks, Councillor White. Councillor Loder, you had your hand up and then I'll go to Councillor House. Okay, Councillor House.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, echoing much of what's been said already, not easy being a councillor. There are two sides to every issue, and this one in particular has, I'd say, been challenging for all of us. It's certainly been challenging for me. First of all, thank you to the applicants and all the representatives for stating their position. The issue of amenity troubles me as well. And it troubles me because A, it is vague, as Councillor Dudman has said. It is subjective. What one person may see as being unreasonable, another person may not. So I've got to be true to my own thoughts, my own heart, I guess. I'm placing myself in the position of those that are representatives or those that may be nearby, and I have sympathy for that position. In my view, it does constitute an unreasonable loss of amenity, or certainly has the potential to. I look at the site management plan, and I understand that that's a requirement. I think that's great. The applicant's desire to set standards and limit noise and all those things is, I'm sure, very well intentioned and very honourable. My issue is, it's like, in my view, I think it's like to be problematic and impossible to guarantee. That's my issue. As much as I think it may be well intentioned, even any subsequent owner of the property may not be able to guarantee that performance. So on that basis, I think it does constitute an unreasonable loss of amenity to the immediate neighbours, and I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor House. Councillor Dotman.
I will leave my concluding remarks to the end, but I think it is at this point pertinent to foreshadow an alternate motion that I will place in the event this current one is lost, that I will place an alternate motion to reject the application. However, that is not my wish.
Thank you, Councillor Dudman. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else that would like to speak before I move back to the mover and seconder? Councillor Sinfield?
Oh, well, I would like to ask again, does the wording need to be changed in terms of the permit conditions to ensure that, should this be approved, that the screening is actually achieved prior to the commencement of the use?
Yes, so you're referring to point 2? And
Yes. Well, I'm just concerned that point 2, whilst it's talking about heights, the only bit there that in a sense is mandated is that they must comply with various site plans. That's just the submission of plans. It's not, they're required to comply with submitting the plans, but what gives effect to the expectation that we would have or are intending to do, that there be screening, effective screening in place day one.
Thank you. I'll just get the General Manager to make.
Okay, so reflecting back to that discussion, Councillor Sinfield, Council's Town Planner did indicate a potential change, and we may ask the mover and the seconder of the motion whether that minor change would be acceptable to them. So we're talking about permit condition 2, and that currently states the visitor accommodation site must not commence until condition 1 has been fully complied with. We spoke to that. And the next sentence is the required minimum height of the hedging plants is 1.5 metres at planting. The Council's Town Planner indicated that they said the intention were to be, it would state hedging plants is 1.5 metres at commencement.
Of use.
Commencement of use. Is that correct, Leanne? Okay, so then we will ask the mover and the seconder if they were satisfied with the change from that stating at planting to at commencement of use.
Councillor Loader and Councillor Dudman, are you satisfied with that small change? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sinfield, is that in line with your expectation then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I'll move back to Councillor Loader as the seconder of the motion. Do you have any more to add?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't really, and I do acknowledge that both the applicant and one of the objectors have moved for medical reasons. And my heart goes out to both of you in that regard, but unfortunately, we can't take that into account when making the decision, as much as the human side of us would really like to. It's not in the act. But I still maintain that there is a scenario where there could be 6 motorhomes or caravans, 24 people, I think, is the maximum, 6 generators, campfires, barking dogs, people drinking and having a great time, and which would equate to not a great time for the neighbours. And I just can't see how a site plan could minimise those sort of impacts, or indeed the angst of worrying about that happening. So for that reason, I just don't think this application with the caravan sites is fitting in with the village zone and people living really close next door. So I can't support it.
Thanks, councillor Loader. Councillor Dudman?
In conclusion, and I won't take up too much time, my position does remain the same, as unpopular as that is appearing to be. I do believe that we cannot say that the loss of amenity will be unreasonable. And I would point to the conditions that are on the development application, where it does include noise mitigation, and obviously the opportunity for the lodgement of an environmental protection notice in the event of ongoing nuisance. I think on that basis, as uncomfortable as people may be, that would constitute sufficient grounds for this proposed loss of amenity to not be unreasonable. But I will allow you to take it to a vote, and we'll see if anyone agrees with me.
Thanks, councillor Dudman. I think listening to the conversation today, I can tell that Meander obviously is a very special place to live for all of the people there. So appreciate all of your time and all of the comments and conversation around the table, but I will need to put it to a vote. So all those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. Cameron, Dudman, Smedley, Simfield and Temple, sorry, John. And those against? Councillor White, Loader and Councillor House. So that motion's carried. I'll bring Wayne back to the chair. Thank you very much, everybody. And for those in the gallery that don't want to continue participating in the planning items, you may rest the meeting, you may leave. Thank you very much. I'll take it.
Oh yeah, no, I do.
Just adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes so everybody gets their stuff back together. But not 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes now.
Probably do. I was 10-second delay, so
I got to let
put the vote and then oops.
those pass.
Oh, only got.
We only just.
We've got a toilet break, haven't we?
Yeah, you got 5 minutes.
Not going to go on that long.
You coming? Well, you can come to the toilet with me because we've got.
It's still on live stream.
I've adjourned the meeting. 5 minutes, so we're a minute in.
Go.
Because we're going to planning items now. So Kevin and I have to leave. I'm getting a bit scared with John's step would be done. My office.
Stand up. I'll swear in there.
It was. Yeah.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So council no longer acts as a planning authority. And I was watching it online, would you believe? And there was a 10-second delay. So I actually didn't get to see the vote because John was tapping on the door and going, I haven't voted yet. So that's a bit of trivial information. Moving along. So the next item is 13.1 community wellbeing, community grants and sponsorship. We have a declaration of interest for that one, do we, or don't we?
That's correct, we do. So the deputy mayor, as we're calling for a mover and a seconder, will exit.
I think the room's been used, Stephanie. We might be able to use it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Loader, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Dudman. Councillor Loader is the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. It is a pleasure to move this motion. I have recently joined the Community Grants and Sponsorship Committee, and it's a really fun committee to be on. It's lovely to give money away, especially to community members who are doing exciting things. It's listed in the agenda. Particularly, I want to wish all the sports people the best of luck as they go off on their special endeavours. So yes, I commend it to my councillor colleagues.
Thanks, Councillor Loader. It's always good to give somebody else's money away, isn't it?
Yeah.
Councillor Dudman, the second of the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Likewise, I'm always happy to speak to these items as they come forward. It is great that this council provides these funding opportunities, which go to good use always within our community. And we can see here through some of the projects that are being put forward that it will make our community operate better, be safer, ensure that local community groups are able to achieve their goals. And I think that is something that should be commended. And my thanks to the staff and to the members of the grant committee who are involved in providing these recommendations. Like Councillor Loader, I'd also like to note the great number of sporting people who are receiving funds from us as well. We always have a large number of people in our community who are representing the country and sometimes the state or the area in their different sporting endeavours, and I think that is a great recognition of the local talent that we have in the Meander Valley. So, like Councillor Loader says, I wish them the best of luck in their endeavours as they head off for their various sporting events.
Thank you, Councillor. I will put. No, I won't put the motion because I actually go around the room and ask any questions. I was really going to put the motion. Councillor Bill.
Yes, highlight a point and then ask a question. The most minor thing ever raised, I suspect the practice nets ought to be on ice, i.e. RACTICE. And more importantly, the question, I think it was stated earlier that there's a review coming up in terms of the policy, etc. And the reason I ask that is that, I think the $150 for individual participants has been that way for many a day, and maybe it's worthy of a relook at the amount.
Thank you. I'll get the General Manager to comment on that. Thanks, Councillor.
Yep, I'll just ask the Manager of Community Wellbeing. I believe that there's a policy review that's underway. Councillors will have a say in what that policy looks like going forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, policy review is underway and we'll be planning on presenting that to a workshop early next year. So, yep, you'll get to contribute to detail like, what's awarded for sponsorships, etc.
Thanks for that. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Jebel, with your microphone, please, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Birrelly Hall AED, will that be accessible all hours, or is it only to patrons when the hall is open to patrons when the hall is being used? And secondary to that, will it appear on the state government app for finding AEDs.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's a good question, councillor Temple. I'll have to go back and check the detail. I know that it was a conversation. I think Anne-Marie might remember the detail on that. It's definitely in our considerations. And yes, it's easy to get it put onto the AED app.
Councillor Oden, follow up.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that was discussed at length. And my understanding is that it's supposed to be accessible 24 hours a day, and it will be put on the app with very detailed instructions on how to find it.
Councillor Smedley.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just the query, I just want to reiterate, my concern is that there's 3 members of council on this committee, and in respect of the Chudley matter, only 1 member of council was in a position to contribute to the discussion, the recommendation, and the query really is if that's sufficiently robust for council's requirements.
Ms. Councillor.
Just through, in response, so the committee currently has 5 members, doesn't differentiate between council law and council officers. So you are correct, Councillor Smedley, in saying that there was only 1 councillor when we had 1 councillor on a leave of absence and 1 councillor that had declared an interest. We had 1 councillor and 2 council officers that was present for one of the applications that was discussed at that committee meeting. So that's correct. And yeah, there's no reason why council can't form a decision around terms of reference to make a change and provide some additional governance in that committee if they would like to.
Thank you, Councillor Loader.
Thank you, Mayor. The discussions in the committee meetings are very robust, and there are many emails that fly around between times. And so I have confidence that the decisions that we recommend to council are appropriate within the guidelines.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, councillors? If not, Councillor Dudman has seconded the motion. Councillor Loader has heard the motion. All those in favour, please say aye, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We will grab the Deputy Mayor, please. Item 14.1, financial statements. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Dudman, thank you. Seconder. Seconder, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Smedley. Councillor Dudman has moved the motion.
I don't think a lot needs to be said about this item other than obviously the auditors are happy with us, which is always good. And of course, our financials, as they generally do, look very sound, which is a credit to the team and the work that they do here.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Smedley, the second on the motion. With the mic, please, Councillor.
Nothing.
No. Okay, thank you. Open up for discussion, councillors. No. Councillor Sinfield, thank you.
Yeah, just on page 188 of the agenda, it says there's a heading there from the audit office about key audit matters. And it sort of leads into those matters that, in the opinion of the Tas Audit Office or the auditor, were of most significance in my audit of the financial year. He then lists one, why this matter is considered to be one of the most significant matters in the audit, and then sort of has a general précis, but there didn't seem to be any, it says that council undertook an audit, or a revaluation, I should say, of land, but he didn't, he just mentions it and then goes on, and I just was curious as to, wouldn't you have sort of said, well, the upshot of this is it's all fine and dandy, and it's like highlighted a point and then just moved on. I just found that curious more than anything.
Yes, councillor, any comments from staff on that one?
Yeah, I think it's fair to take the fact that we have had nothing raised as a concern out of the audit, that it's being raised simply that we have a large asset base. It's obviously a key item, the valuation of our properties, and the audit has found with the revaluations that we've done this year that we've adequately accounted for the valuation base of those assets.
Thank you. Questions, comments, councillors? No. Councillor Smedley is the second on the motion. Anything to add? Councillor Dudman is the mover. The motion, and all those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand. That is unanimous, councillors. Thank you. 14.2 financial report for 30th of September, page 195. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Councillor Dudman moving, second, Councillor Smedley, thank you. Councillor Dudman moving the motion.
I think a lot of my comments from the last item can stand. To mix things up, I think I'll ask a question on page 203, item 6619, Deloraine landfill site improvements, 21-22. The percentage of total budget is sitting at 229.55%. For the benefit of those at home, could you explain why we've had such a overspend on this item?
That item also includes.
I'm going to take the question when we get into general.
Sure.
We're having on the second of the motion yet. Thanks, Councillor Dudman. Councillor Smedley is second of the motion. Any of that?
Question, but I'll wait for them to go.
And now Councillor Dudman has asked the question, so we're going to Councillor Dudman's question. Thank you.
That item that item includes the Deloraine weighbridge, which was, I believe, capitalised in the last financial year. There's some additional expenditure in this year, so we will need to retrospectively go back and reconcile and potentially adjust the capitalised asset.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley, you said you had a question?
I just wanted to get
with the microphone, sorry, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to get some overall impression on how progressing with expenditure on capital works items. That was discussed in the media regarding another council. I appreciate the seasonal factors there, but if we could get some information in more detail around that.
Please.
We do. Just wanted to make a comment, coming back to the previous question from Councillor Dudman. We're actually requesting a budget adjustment today in page 231. So when we get to infrastructure, we are seeking to correct the transfer station, the weighbridge element that Craig referred to.
Thanks. General Manager.
Look, I'll provide a general comment and then Craig and Justin feel free to contribute. Yeah, our ability to deliver our capital works will be affected by a range of things. I guess the weather event that we had is one that perhaps some other councils in Tasmania didn't feel to the extent that we did. Probably a cost of around $400,000 associated with that, Councillor Smedley, but also it takes our works crew out of their normal course of operations for about 6 weeks, which also stops their ability to deliver on some of our capital works, road construction jobs down the track, because our works department has around $3 million worth of capital works that they also complete in addition to their maintenance stuff. So as far as contracting out work goes, we've had, today we're considering a tender, which we had a good response on, but sometimes being a small market, there's not a great deal of competition for our work. We saw that with a recent approval of our bitumen and asphalt resealing program, where we had a very low number of respondents to that tender process. So we are still affected by the overall infrastructure program in Tasmania, and conscious that in the bridge and the road sort of areas, there are very few suppliers that compete for that larger work, but that's Craig and Justin.
Thank you.
Yeah, only other comments would be that we're very close to closing out the Deloraine footbridge, closing out the Deloraine squash courts, making good progress on the new works depot, and making good progress through the Deloraine rec precinct as well. So it's some reasonably large projects that are progressing well. As the general manager noted, we had the storms, which will no doubt impact, but we also had fairly inclement weather leading up to the storms as well. So even in the absence of those storm events, some of the works that would ordinarily have been progressing were delayed. And also probably just worth noting that there are a range of works, probably primarily around roads, that are in the annual plan that aren't really scheduled for completion in the September quarter anyway, so they would be later in the year. So I think that the program's progressing as we would expect it to, apart from those anomalies.
Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Simfield.
Yeah, just for the record, could you remind me what you've said on page 195 in terms of the storm event that occurred in August, September? The cost would be as high as 500,000, and that reimbursement from other levels of government is, well, I'm implying that, will be claimed up to 75% of costs. Can you remind me what the trigger points are for? Because I think it's 50, isn't it? 50% up to a certain figure and then 75 above that. So I was just wanting a reminder of how this event will be treated.
Absolutely. Through you, Mayor, yes, that's right. So there's two thresholds effectively. So approximately once the expenditure gets over 60,000, there's 50% can be claimed back. And then once it's over about 105,000, that's 75% kicks in from there. So relatively small thresholds.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, councillors? If not, Councillor Smedley is the second on the motion. Anything to add? Councillor Dudman, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on 14.3, page 213. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Councillor Dudman, and was that a hand up, Councillor Cameron?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't know. I thought it was, but anyway.
Actually, my phone.
All right. Councillor Dudman has moved the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to move that these minutes be accepted. Obviously, it's always a pleasure to sit on the audit panel with the other committee members, including staff and my fellow councillors. I note the recent change and welcoming Councillor Temple on and thanking Councillor House for his service to the audit panel. And I'm sure we will continue to have some very good times in the audit committee.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cameron, a second on the motion.
Nothing to add other than to thank Councillor Dudman and Councillor Temple for their attendance.
And Councillor House.
Not at this particular meeting,
No.
but I'm very thankful for his past attendance.
Okay, have enough for discussion, councillors. Councillor House.
Thank you for mentioning me, Councillor Dudman, very kind of you. Yeah, look, I'd like to say a couple of things about having been on that panel for some time. First of all, to thank Councillors Dudman, Temple, and anyone in the future that might sit on that panel. The audit committee has been delegated the task of oversight into such things as financial reporting, internal controls, governance, risk management, and it's a well-managed council. And I'd like to thank everyone for their input and the amount of effort that goes into it. There is a lot of effort goes into preparing all the documentation for the audit panel. It's a robust set of checks and balances, and I think ratepayers appreciate the time and effort that go into it. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor House. Any discussion, councillors? Okay, there's no anything, Gabe. Councillors, no. Okay, I'll put the motion and all those in favour, let's raise your hands. Aye. That's unanimous again. Thank you. So 10.1, infrastructure services, review of the program budget. We'd like to move, somebody like to second that, please. Oh, sorry, page 228. Sorry, I'll ask again. Somebody like to move. Thank you, Councillor Dudman. Second, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Smedley. Councillor Dudman as the mover.
noting the conversation we had 2 items ago, I am happy to let the rest stand and I will be voting in favour.
Thank you, councillor Smedley.
I'll be voting in favour as well.
Thank you. Open up for discussion, councillors. Questions, comments? Nothing? Okay, going once, twice. Nothing, Greg, mover and seconder? Nope. Okay, I'll therefore put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous again. Thank you. Moving on to one. Page 232. We'd like to move, somebody like a second, councillor Cameron. Second, please, councillor House. Councillor Cameron is the mover of the motion.
Thank you. I had the pleasure last term of office to sit next to councillor White, and I've always found her to be very considerate and a very calming influence on me. So I'm very excited to have her back here. So congratulations, and I must take the opportunity to mention former councillor Kelly, because he also brought a lot of interest to the table, but that used usually with some jerky of some description. So please don't do that. Thank you.
Councillor. Councillor House has a second motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, yes, indeed, agree with all those things. It does remind me to give thanks to councillor Kelly. On a personal note, when I first started on council a couple of years ago, almost exactly now, councillor Kelly has been a great support to me, and everyone that I speak to in the community has got great thoughts for councillor Kelly's performance in the past and wishes him well for the future. So I'd like to thank him on a personal note. I haven't had the pleasure of working alongside councillor White up until now. But again, I've heard some great things, and I did notice even last time, which was last workshop, you just slotted straight back in beautifully as if you'd never been away. So I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. So well done.
Thank you, councillor House. Open up for discussion, councillors. Councillor White.
I'd just like to thank Deputy Mayor Cameron and Councillor House for their kind comments.
We haven't finished yet.
Yeah.
The rest of them might have something to say. Councillor Sedgwick.
Yeah, I just comment on former councillor Kelly. I think started way back in about 2009, and the organisation has changed dramatically over his 2 stints on council. I think 3 or 4 years the first time, and then back again. 8 years as deputy mayor. And in conclusion, I'd probably say I have no expectation of councillor White maintaining the level of humour that councillor Kelly occasionally brought to the table. And yes, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, councillor Sedgwick. Any other comments, councillors? Welcome to the table, councillor. Appreciate you coming back. Yes, councillor Kelly brought all sorts of things to the table, literally, and wishing the best, as I said earlier on. So nothing else. As a second motion, councillor Cameron has moved. Put the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Raise your hands. That is unanimous. Thank you. 16.2, page 237. Councillor Sinfield is leaving the room. Do I have a move that and a seconder, please? Councillor Loader, thank you. Seconder, councillor Cameron. Councillor Loader as mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this motion. I think any councillor that's prepared to put themselves out there and go to a conference that potentially they can learn from and bring things back to us to help us be the best council we can be is a good thing. Councillor Sinfield has been a councillor on and off for a long time, but I think it's good to note that just because someone has been at the table for a long time doesn't mean that we shouldn't all be learning. I also note that my understanding is that if anybody goes away to a conference or a learning day, that we're supposed to provide a report of the outcomes of that learning. So I commend this motion to my councillor colleagues, and if it passes, I will be looking forward to councillor Sinfield's lengthy report on what he learns.
Councillor Loader, Councillor Cameron.
I could only agree with you, councillor Loader. I think knowing councillor Sinfield as we do, he's a very keen interest in this space, and I think he'll use the opportunity to its full potential, and there'll be no doubt in my mind that he will be very happy to report back to us in great detail. So I do look forward to that.
Thanks, councillor. Any other discussion, councillor? Councillor House.
A question more so, has this happened before? Has there been a precedent when someone has gone from council on a trip of this nature?
Well, the general manager, Deb,
Oh, well, I've attended
with
conferences.
the mic.
Sorry, yes, I've attended conferences in Melbourne about food production and provided a report when I came back.
Oh, look, not so much in recent times. Councillor House, probably there's 2 years, 2020, 21 potentially, when there was a lack of conference availability. So something that's becoming more common. We had the Mayor attend the Australian Local Government Association Congress earlier this year. Other examples, not that often. I guess it's more common for councillors to attend local conferences and training opportunities. Some of those, the cost is lower, and there's a threshold within council's policy around attendance, and the value that we anticipate for this conference just trigger a threshold to come to council for decision.
Thank you. I've got no opposition to it at all. I just wanted to check, and I've got every confidence that you will be providing lots of feedback and lots of learning from the conference if approved.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that I think the opportunity is there for every councillor to potentially go off and learn and bring something new back to the table. And while it is a long way away on this one, I think back in 2018 when Martin Gill was general manager and I was first here as mayor, 2019, I think there was an application for council to go away then, but it didn't come about. It was cancelled at the time. So the opportunities are there, and of course it comes from all of the council, and we have a budget, and we approve or otherwise. But I'm happy to support Councillor Sinfield going away on this one, as I would with any other councillor that want to go away and bring something back to the table. Councillor Temple, with your microphone, please, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support this, but I'm just concerned about the budget. It's listing certain items and saying it's an approximation, which is fair enough, but it doesn't include intrastate travel over there. So somehow he's got to get to the conference from the airport in Perth. And it's seemingly, if we approve this, that would be at his expense.
Jim?
No, that's not an expectation, councillor. The estimated costs are in line with the discussion that I had with councillor Sinfield last week about it, and the airfares there would actually be to Busselton, not Perth.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise that. Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, councillors? Councillor Cameron, a second on the motion. No, Councillor Loader has moved the motion. Right, put the motion all those in favour, please say aye. Yeah. That is unanimous again, councillors. Thank you. Get Councillor Sinfield back in. We've got to go on a fun driving on that. Okay, moving along, item 16.3.
Being a one-way airfare.
I wasn't suggested a one-way airfare, no, councillor. Review of annual plan, someone like to move, someone like to second? Councillor Dudman, thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Smedley, thank you. Councillor Dudman has moved the motion.
No, I think I've talked enough, and I would encourage my fellow councillors to share their views on this one.
Thank you. Councillor Smedley?
Nothing at this point.
Oh, nothing to add. Open for discussion, councillors. Sorry, it was page 269. Nothing to add?
Don't share your piece then.
There was just a couple of, it's really just how it's set out. I think I might have commented on that once before, like the last three on page 276. Says the measure is, under the heading of measure, for example, the last three say policy suite review and training complete, and then under status it says not applicable or something. I'm just wondering about, if somebody else reads that document, it might be somewhat confusing.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Singfield. So if we have a look at the timing column, which is the second from the right-hand side, there's no target for the September quarter that we are just, so this is a report for our September quarter, but there wasn't a target for the September quarter. So if I use an example, on page 276, as noted, the last one is negotiate with all employees to form a new enterprise agreement with that due to commence in the December quarter. So there wouldn't have been a target for September.
I know, but then that goes to the point that why does it say under the heading of measure that it's completed? That's what I'm finding confusing. Like I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. You haven't started it yet, or it's a future thing, but it's the fact that in those, the two columns don't seem to gel together well. So for example, as I say, the third last one says, well, they all are basically saying either complete or completed, and then it says two columns later that the status is not applicable. I just find that, or wonder if somebody else reads that, they'd be a bit confused by, well, I understand that you're saying that it hasn't started yet, or whatever the relevant one is, but it's just, how those items tie in together, I guess.
Well, it wasn't confusing, now it is, Councillor. So anyway, thanks for that. Okay. All right, any other questions, councillors? Well, take that one on notice, councillor. Any other questions, councillors, comments? No, Councillor Smedley, second that. Dudman as mover. All right, put the motion, all those in favour, please say aye, raise your hand. That is unanimous again, thank you. 16.4, page 281. Yes, thank you. Councillor Cameron is the mover, Seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Just thank those involved in getting to this point. The Shamrock Cricket Club's got a really long history in our community, and I know that this is greatly appreciated. So that's what I have to say.
Very good. Councillor Dudman. Great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to throw it open for questions, comments. Councillor Temple, finger on the button.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask, do we provide the same level of support for other rounds? How does it, or are we setting a precedent in this move? That's the basic question.
So, Council, we try to provide a consistent level of service in our grounds. So I guess that's a first point. However, in Meander Valley, this is the only turf wicket that we have that's played cricket on. So I guess originally or historically, the cricket club volunteers have undertaken a great deal of work to, I guess, get it established and to continue to maintain that, which they have found increasingly difficult with their volunteer base. So they've been asking for some additional support with the Director of Works, plus also councillors and General Manager for a few years now. Councillors have considered this and discussed it on a number of occasions in the past year. when forming council's budget for this year, were supportive of the opinion that we should be providing some additional assistance to the Westbury Cricket Club because of the fact that this is probably a more demanding cricket pitch area than any of the others. If we think to Whitemore, Hadspen, Hagley being Astros turf surfaces, the demand is quite different. So, but the Director of Works has been working with the Cricket Club on the matter, so perhaps the comments of you. Thank you.
Thanks, General Manager. Look, nothing really a lot further to add, Councillor, apart from this is still a partnership. This is about council taking, I suppose, a bigger piece of the work than what they ever had. But critically, it's still a partnership with the club, and the club will provide game day support. And there will be agreement around, obviously, the transfer of the asset to council. So if we're doing most of the work, we need to be able to manage the plant in a way to make sure that it's fit for purpose, used, and it's readily available to our staff to be able to do the work. But critically, and the conversation with the club is, it's about maintaining the partnership. And we find pressures in all these spaces. The volunteer groups are getting smaller, and they do look to council to provide greater assistance than ever. And we've had that conversation with council, and we believe that what we're presenting is a reasonable position, supporting the club in what the General Manager has described as it is unique within our district. And we believe that it's something that we've set operationally that we can now achieve. It's been 3 or 4 years in discussion really with the club to get to this point that we could also be able to take on this work, upskill our people and support the club in the way that we need to going forward, and the club to also understand their role in the partnership.
Again, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I see this as being more than just plant and equipment. I see this as an investment in community wellbeing, in physical and mental health. It's a great club, apart from the fact that they're good at cricket. You know, they're getting out there, they're mixing, and they're doing all the things that we need to do to make sure that we live healthy lives. And I think anything that council can do to support them is really, really good. So I'm 100% behind this. I am not a sporty person. I know I run marathons, but I'll argue black and blue that I'm not sporty and I run, therefore running is not a sport. But I do see that sport is something that really helps us to be healthy. So thanks for your hard work on this one, Matthew, and I'm very happy to support it.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you. Is this in perpetuity or for a limited number of years at this stage?
No, it's in perpetuity, Councillor. So council provided a small increase in budget to provide for the fact that we will be doing more. That's not a one-off spend. That's an ongoing commitment that we are intending to make to the club, subject to the decision that's before you, the recommendation. So no, it's not for a defined period of time. The decision the council is making in agreeing to accept the gift of assets also establishes council's commitments to maintain and to replace those assets when they become end of life. So I think that probably answers the question.
Councillor Smithy.
Through Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yeah, just a query around what's the precedence with other councils in this regard? So that's you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. In majority of, well, I would say in all cases, as I understand it, where there are turf wickets, particularly at Premier League level, they're either supported by the association, having direct employees, or local government clearing the pitches. Certainly at Riverside, NTCA, Georgetown, Latrobe, the list goes on at this level.
Good. Thank you. Can I just say that I'm fully supportive of this? I know since my time as Mayor, since 2019, or whatever it might have been, We've been lobbied every year by the Shamrocks to give some contribution, and I know past councillors have lobbied as well. I'm really glad to see that this is here because, as Matthew said, we only have one premier team that represents us in the north of the state, and they seem to win not every year, but nearly every year, and they do a good job, so we should be proud of them and support it. So I'm happy to support this motion. Councillor Temple?
Should there be a minimum number of matches played per year to keep this arrangement on foot? Meaning if the club waned, and I hope that doesn't happen because I support all of this, to such an extent that nothing much was happening, we would still be potentially doing this for very few.
That's correct, councillor. So we would still own the assets, we would still be insuring them. It may change a decision point in the future around replacement of those assets. If it's scaled back to the level that you were sort of indicating, and potentially we do a bit less if the rostering was different. But we are reflecting the recommendation in front of you, what's been requested by the club and what we have negotiated with the club that we think is a reasonable position.
Okay, now put the motion in. Councillor Dudman as the second motion. Councillor Cameron as the mover.
No, only to say that yeah, I guess it is a little bit different to what we might have been used to, but it's pleasing to hear Matthew to speak about it as a partnership, knowing that the Shamrocks are still really invested in this, and really pleased with the way that it's turned out. So thank you.
Very good. Put the motion. All those in favour, so raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you.
And so, councillor Lotus, correct?
Yeah. Item 16.5 with premises, page 285, councillor Loader has declared an interest and has left. Involving door today, even now. Somebody like to move, somebody like to second, please. Done, thank you. Second of the motion, councillor House, thank you. Councillor Dudman.
Thank you, Mayor. More than happy to move this item. I think that the Deloraine Library, as with the Westbury Library, play an instrumental role in our community and community wellbeing. Ensure that we are living in a successful and vibrant community. So anything that the council can do to ensure the long-term viability and presence of these libraries in our community is something that I'm always going to support. I will note that there has been some debate outside of these chambers by the state government about reducing the hours of the libraries in our regional areas. It's my understanding that the minister has backed away from this suggestion, and that is something that I welcome and encourage, because to cut back on the service that these institutions provide in our community would be a grave mistake and a large misunderstanding of how vital they are for everyone in the Meander Valley. So I am glad that we will continue to use the Deloraine Library well into the future.
Councillor House.
Thank you. Not nearly as much to add. No, just more well and truly in favour of seeing the continuation of the Deloraine Library. So pleased to second it and support it.
Thank you. Open up for discussion, councillors.
Yeah, just a question. I'm not advocating that it be changed, but it's simply stating that on page 286, item 2 of the recommendation, it says the lease amount shall be $19,350 per annum, which is paid by the Department of Education. Obviously would have deep pockets. We're not proposing to index that in any way, shape or form over the potentially 4-year term.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the proposal is to index that amount over the 4-year term.
So would that be, ought not be shown up in the formal lease, or is this just a pricey of the lease?
That's
quite happy with the answer, but I'm just.
Yeah, the second, this is how we've approached the small, we don't have an enormous amount of leases. This is how we approached some recent renewals, councillor. So you'll see 2F says all remaining terms to be determined by the general manager. So this is just trying to capture the essence of what that lease is about, rather than providing the lease document with every term.
Thank you.
Any questions, councillors? It just occurred to me, General Manager, that we had the renewal of the lease for the Deloraine Caravan Park. We put it out for tender. Did we ever consider putting out tender for other leases that come up on a regular basis?
We do, Mayor. That's, yeah, that'd be fair to say. I'll think of examples for you. With a number of councils' buildings, we have long-term tenants that feel some level of community service obligation. I'll think of examples for you. This is one, obviously, and Emu Bay Road there.
Deloraine
Police station.
No, don't answer that one.
Yeah, sporting organisations, I think that we have discussed at workshop, the Deloraine Tennis Club, the Whitemore Tennis Club. They're just examples that I'll give you there, but anything that has a competitive nature or a commercial basis, I think it would be looked at differently.
Very good. I'm certainly not advocating that we do that. I just asked the question. Somebody might go, well, we did it for one organisation. Why are we doing it for all? So, any other questions, comments, councillors? No. Councillor House, second on the motion. Anything to add? No. Councillor Dutton, the motion. Okay, put the motion on those vote. Please. All right, those hands. Unanimous again. Thank you. Motion to close the meeting to the public. Somebody like to move? Councillor Dutton. Somebody like to second? Councillor House. Sorry, I should have asked Anne-Marie. I should hold that. I went up for a second. Anne-Marie, I got carried away with closing the meeting. Welcome back. We're just up to Councillor Dudman as the mover of the motion, seconder, while it's Councillor House to close the meeting. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand. That is unanimous again. Thank you. Live streaming and recordings off, please.